Hi, Denise Gwen, reading aloud for you from my short story, A Good Christian Woman, chapters 8 and 9. We picked out a ring we liked. He'd been saving up for some time, and when I showed it to Mama, the diamonds glittering under the bright kitchen lights, her face fell. I should have expected this reaction. Mama lived by the mantra, love the one you're with, so I really should have known better. My mother would have been over the moon, but my mother was most definitely not my mama. You're mighty young, honey. Don't you want to have a little more fun before you settle down? I don't know, Mama. I feel like when you know, you know. Leave the girl be, Papa said from the kitchen table. He set down the newspaper. He's a fine young man. Give them a chance. All right, Mama said. I'll bite my tongue for now. As I'd hoped, my mother's reaction was what I wanted to hear. When I called her up and told her, she wept, she laughed, and then she wept some more. She decided to travel to Swan Falls early. Mama may not have been keen on our marrying so young, but she did throw us an engagement party. She called up all her women friends, her bridge buddies, as she calls them, and their husbands. And on the same evening that my mother and her new husband and Ben's grandparents showed up at Mama's front door, we hosted a fabulous blowout celebration, complete with toasts and a roaring river of wine. Chapter 9. The party didn't start winding down until 2 in the morning. I'd wandered into the living room and was holding a glass of wine in my hand, wondering if Ben and I weren't moving too fast after all, when the back of my neck prickled with goosebumps. I looked out through the picture window and saw Mrs. McClintock standing in the window of her house across the street. She stood utterly still, staring at me. How long has she... A hand on my shoulder bestirred me and I yelped. Hey, it's just me, Ben said. I looked up at him with love. His brow furrowed, he gestured across the street with his beer. Get away from the window. I don't like how that old bag's staring at you. That's Mrs. McClintock. She's an old friend of Mama's. Is she? Oh, yeah, they've been friends for years. If she's such a good friend, why isn't she here? It never occurred to me to wonder at this. Mama did all kinds of things for Mrs. McClintock. She drove her to doctor visits, chemotherapy appointments, groceries. She even took her out to eat at least once a month, and yet here were all of Mama's dearest and best friends and no sign of her neighbor from across the street? If they were so close, why wasn't she here?